Back in 1925, a movie company came to the streets of Newhall to make a Western movie. The movie was called Code of the West. It was directed by one J.P. McGowan, and it starred somebody named Bob Custer, and it isn't very good. In fact, we wouldn't be watching it today if it weren't for the backgrounds. For the dusty streets and the wooden clapboard buildings the movie plays against show us Newhall, California as it was back when the tiny town was just 50 years old. Newhall had the authentic look of old Western streets back then, and this movie looks like it didn't have a very big budget and couldn't afford to shoot on a back lot. That's probably why our small town was chosen. But we'll go into that more later.
Hello, my name is Philip Scorza, and I'd like to welcome you to our program, Points of Interest. The railroad joining Northern and Southern California came through our valley in 1876. The towns of Newhall and Saugus were laid out because of the railroad. These rails still serve the city of Santa Clarita today. The streets of Newhall and Saugus, the Saugus train station, and landmarks such as Beale's Cut have flashed in front of the eyes of the movie-going public since at least 1917. Today we are going to take a look at some movies that were shot using our backgrounds. We're going to match old photographs and these movies against what we see today. At one time, Tom Mix, the Western actor, used this small building behind me as a dressing room. It's the only building standing today that was seen in Code of the West. Newhall and the surrounding area have been used as a backdrop for so many movies that nobody really knows how many have been shot here. The Western Walk of Fame on Main Street is a testament to the many men and women who have made Western movies in our area. Most of the action takes place around the old Newhall train station.
It stood on the exact spot today's train station stands on. Early photographs show a typical Southern Pacific train station with tracks running along either side of it. The plot involves the ticket agent who is being duped by the bad guys. If you watch this man for long, you'll see why he is easily duped. Hey buddy, have a drink? Don't mind if I do. His daughter, Phyllis, who dresses as though she were in the 1920s, takes over for him at the train station whenever he goes off on a bender, which is several times in the movie. We should note here that the men in this movie all dress as though they were in the Old West, while the women in the movie dress like flappers out of the 1920s. Either wardrobe only existed for the men, or maybe all the actors had to bring their own clothes and the women didn't have any Western wear to wear. Let me lay out the story for you so you don't waste your time trying to find anything exciting about the plot. Some crooks steal a package from the train station whilst the agent takes a snort with another crook. After they pass the stolen package around on Main Street, the clever guys put in an insurance claim for it. Only the sheriff won't okay payment because he's waiting for Jack Hartley to arrive. Along comes Jack Hartley, played by Bob Custer. It turns out he's the railroad bull sent to investigate the claim. Bob Custer's acting style consists of staring as if he were dumbfounded for a long time before speaking. Anyway, to get back to the movie, one building besides the train station that we see a lot of is the old Gifford House. The house sat across the tracks from the station for one very good reason. John Gifford was the first station agent in Newhall for the Southern Pacific Railroad. Their house had to be close for convenience sake. Mrs. Gifford lived into the late 1940s and was one of the last pioneers of our town. Their house sat where the community center is today. When not at the train station, they filmed up and down Main Street, or Spruce Street as it was called then. It's the Old West, and that's the sheriff talking to Jack Hartley when the station agent walks up and the three connive to catch the bad guys. Watch what happens as the agent starts away. That's a car passing in the background. But cars weren't invented yet. Watch it again. I guess they couldn't afford to close the street off. This scene of the train arriving is looking north up the tracks. On the right, across the tracks, there's a fairly large two-storied house. Here's a closer look at the house on the far right. We slowed the film down so you could see the house in the background and the bully grabbing the station agent and pulling him back. We've got some photographs of this house, all taken from that hill you see over the bully's shoulder. Here's what it looks like from there. Downtown Newhall taken around 1900. That's the train station you see just above the roof of the house. Meanwhile, the station agent is sucking on a bottle over at the local dance hall. We don't know where these shots were taken, but since the budget was next to nothing, we have to figure the makers of this film never would pop for a studio rental, so it had to have been done somewhere around these parts. Other than the sweet little round-faced daughter back at the station, the only other women we see in the film are seen in the bar. Again, they dress like the 1920s. As soon as the station agent leaves the dance hall, he is accosted by one of the toughs right here on our very own Spruce Street. While he gets the life choked out of him, take note of the buildings in the background. This is Newhall, 1925. In this shot, we see the Bank of America building in the background on the left. It's one of the few brick buildings on the street. Next to that is the old Campton's General Store. Here are a couple of photos of it. You can see it's had several remodelings over the years. And this is what it looks like today on the corner of 8th and Main Street. They hung a sheriff's sign on a building around where today's Rendezvous Bar is at 8th and Railroad Avenue. That's our two-story house in the background again. And this is what it looks like today at Railroad Avenue and 8th Street. So far as the story goes, this is where our hero and the sheriff finally plot to catch the crooks in the act of stealing another package addressed to them. By the way, that's a southbound freight pulling uphill in the background, heading for the Newhall Railroad Tunnel. This being a cheapy production, they found a typical Newhall house for their interiors. This room is used a couple of times in the movie, but has different locations. Here it's a bedroom, here it's a living room. Watch it again. First it's a bedroom, then it's a living room. It was shot somewhere in Newhall and shows the typical clapboard house, which was cheap and popular back then. The unusual looking building in the background was at one time the Soledad Hotel and Cafe. It's the only one like it on Spruce Street, with its two-tone cinder block walls. Here's a picture of it taken during the July 4th parade in 1940. That's World War I veteran Charles Kingsbury riding his favorite horse and showing the colors. Here's another shot of it. We're looking south down Main Street, or Old San Fernando Road. At long last, or maybe it just seems that way, Jack Hartley catches the crooks in the act. He and the sheriff take on all three at the same time and handle them easily, or so it seems from where I sit. Everyone forgives or forgets the fact that Dad was a dupe and a drunk. He even gets to shoot the gun off accidentally for comic effect. Of course, the young couple have eyes for each other. The final kiss means that Jack and the agent's daughter either end up happily ever after, or that every time this man passes through town, he's got a squeeze.
3 years later, J.P. McGowan and Company came back to our area to make another film. It was titled The Last Roundup, and they used the nearby oil boom town of Mentryville for their backgrounds.
Bob Custer again stars, this time as the foreman of a ranch whose crew is rustling his cattle. Mentryville is the site of the first successful oil well in the western United States. It produced oil from 1876 until 1990. At one time, over 100 families lived here, in clapboard houses that were easy to pack up and move away. Two permanent structures that still stand are the Mentry House and the Felton School. Both of these were used in the movie. The story has it that the new school marm is going to be kidnapped by the bad guys from the one-room schoolhouse. Eventually, she is rescued by Bob Custer, of course. But not before we see a number of shots of the Mentry House, which is used as the Bar D headquarters. There are some great shots taken from the side of the house looking down the front porch, everyone coming and going. There are quite a few shots taken in the living room of the Mentry House. One where they are sitting around a table, dining, and one at the end of the film where they are getting married. Mentryville today is owned and operated by the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy and is open to the public from sunrise to sunset daily.
The star of our community has always been the Saugus train station. While other buildings have come and gone, this station has served our community since 1886, and it is obviously a great place to film. Just ask Charlie Chaplin.
In 1923, Charlie Chaplin used the Saugus train station for the opening sequences of his movie, The Pilgrim. In the film, Chaplin is an escaped convict who steals a minister's clothes and tries to get out of town. He is pacing up and down on the platform of the station when a couple planning to elope discover him. "Hey buddy, can you marry us?" Chaplin thinks they are after him and runs off. The station stood on the east side of San Fernando Road back then, or Railroad Avenue as we call it today. The girl's father shows up in a scene looking north from the station. That's the branch line to Fillmore and Piru, curving out of the picture on the left in the distance. Filming took place outside the agent's window, which was on the highway side of the station. Chaplin is nervous around the policeman until he realizes he's not there to pick him up. The scene ends when Chaplin goes through the door and into the station.
In 1930, Warner Brothers used the Saugus train station for their big-budget musical, Mammy, starring Al Jolson.
The film is about a traveling minstrel show and is dated and insulting, but it features some fabulous shots of old Saugus and the stores across the street from the station, including the original Saugus Cafe. The minstrel show is traveling by train and making a quick stop in Saugus, where Jolson is to briefly meet his mother. The train carrying the minstrel show pulls into the Saugus station from the Fillmore-Piru branch line. We'll slow the film down so we can get a good look at the buildings across the street from the station. There's the Saugus Cafe, Wood's Garage, and the drugstore. The station isn't really featured in these scenes, but the stores across the street are. They show us downtown Saugus as it looked in the 1920s and 1930s.
This is what the scene looks like today across the street from the site of where the Saugus train station once stood. After a brief visit and some schmaltzy sentiment between Jolson, his mother, and the Merry Minstrels, the train pulls out of the station heading south along San Fernando Road and the Santa Clara River. These are some great shots looking down the tracks with the two-lane road beside it, all receding into the distance. A scene out of the past, and one that shows us what our area looked like before houses and subdivisions took their place.
Fast forward to 1953, and the Saugus train station and the streets of Newhall get the part of a lifetime.
The movie Suddenly, starring Frank Sinatra and Sterling Hayden,
was filmed right here in our town. All the exterior scenes were filmed on the streets of Newhall and at the Saugus train station, which at that time stood across the street from the Saugus Cafe. Because of our streets, this movie is a poignant reminder of what small-town America looked like back in 1953. The plot involves the President of the United States getting off the train in our town, which is called Suddenly in the movie. The President plans to play golf here, but his plans are foiled by an assassin played by Frank Sinatra.
right from the beginning of the movie, when a car pulls up across from Hart Park and a man asks directions, our streets and our heritage are on display. The camera pans right to a Chamber of Commerce sign welcoming us to the town of Suddenly, and underneath it says, "Gold first discovered here in 1842. Well, that's our gold discovery they're talking about in 1842, out in Placerita Canyon.
The action starts in front of the American Movie Theater, which William S. Hart built and originally named Tumbleweeds after his latest film. Today it's the home of the American Legion Post 507 of Newhall. The boy stands in front of the theater, and then Sheriff Todd comes along. He parks his car in front of the building all right, but when he gets out, he's in front of the Ford dealer 3 blocks away. The heart-to-heart talk between Pidge and Sheriff Todd takes place as they walk down San Fernando Road in front of the Newhall Hardware Store and Tracy Harris Market. Remember, folks, this is Newhall, 1953. Pidge wants to buy a toy gun, but his mom won't let him because his dad was killed in the war and she's afraid of guns.
Look, Pidge, if you had the gun, what would you do with it? Stick up a filling station?
Stick up a filling station? Heck no, I'm a sheriff, and I catch all those road agents and cattle rustlers, just like you.
Sheriff Todd is sweet on Pidge's mom, so he helps her with the groceries. In the background, we can see the corner of Market Street and San Fernando Road. That white building is the old Newhall drugstore, today's work
Well, I
boots.
can't go on asking you and being turned down. In the meantime.
There's quite a lot of footage of Tracy Harris Market called M&N Market in the film, with some interior shots where the sheriff's romantic advances are rebuffed by Pidge's mom, and he calls it quits. Probably for the umpteenth time.
Pidge, where did you get that gun?
I bought it for him, Ellen.
Here's an interesting location. This is where Magic Mountain Parkway dead ends into what used to be San Fernando Road. That railroad track we crossed over is the old Southern Pacific branch line towards Fillmore. This is the scene where the assassins arrive in town just as the state police get here. Let's look at it again. Looking north from the intersection, we pan a domed building way off that is still there today. And so is that house in the background. But the real star locally has got to be the Saugus train station. Look at this long shot of a guy pulling a load along the platform. When they shot this movie, the station sat across San Fernando Road from the Saugus Cafe. Today, the Saugus train station sits at Heritage Junction next to Hart Park. There are great shots of old Saugus and the stores across the street. That's the Agent's Bay window, by the way. You can come down to Heritage Junction at Hart Park and walk around Saugus Station. It's open on Saturdays and Sundays from 1 to 4.
Sure. What's the word? Get out of here. Get the sheriff. Tell him to get over here fast. It's an emergency.
I like this. The guy runs out the door and must keep running about 6 miles because now he's coming from the railroad tracks on 6th Street, a long run from Saugus to the old sheriff's station. Today that building is used by the Canyon Theater Guild. suddenly it's the real thing. It was the sheriff's station from 1928 into the early 1960s. There are lots of scenes in here with Sterling Hayden, everybody running in and out and driving off. By the way, there's the Tom Mix dressing room across the street in the background. A key plot point is the fact that Pidge lives in a house that looks right down at the train station. That was the house Dr. Ross and his family lived in over on 8th Street. But in Suddenly, it's a good place to shoot the president from. In reality, the Ross house is about 8 miles from the Saugus station. An impossible shot even today. I was told they set up a crane across the street from the train station to get the shot looking out the window down on the tracks. The assassin and his 2 henchmen work their way into the house and hold everyone hostage. The house is Pidge's grandpa's house, and he and his mom live in it. Because the place is so strategically located, Sheriff Todd eventually arrives with a Secret Service man, who is promptly shot dead by Mr. Sinatra. The movie is well written and well acted, a taut drama that takes place mostly in the living room of this house. Here's more magic from the movies. The deputy stands along Old San Fernando Road in Newhall when he encounters one of the villains.
Driver's license right here.
Shots are fired, and 6 miles up the road at the Saugus train station, the Secret Service men react. A shootout ensues, and one of the bad guys gets his, but not before we see several shots of Main Street, Newhall, and the alley behind it.
Hold it! Don't shoot him!
Gosh, right here in our own town. With the president's train due to arrive, everyone in the house works to thwart the assassin's plans. Pidge manages to get his hands on Grandpa's gun, the repairman wires the table the gun sits on to the TV, and Grandpa makes sure there is a puddle of water for the gunman to stand in. One of the bad guys gets electrocuted, and he shoots off the gun, sending a hail of bullets at the Secret Servicemen down below.
Return fire!
Bullets fly from the Saugus train station, wrecking the windows in the house. With the shootout, the president's plans change, and the train never stops, and suddenly. Finally, Mom overcomes her fear of guns and shoots Frank Sinatra.
Stop!
After this, Mom agrees to go out with Sheriff Todd. Ironic, isn't it? She'll only date him after she's killed a man. Well, once again, all's well that ends well in Newhall, California.
Can I pick you up for church tomorrow?
The movie Suddenly is definitely worth watching, even if you aren't from these parts. But the backgrounds and the old buildings make it extra special.
Yeah, that'd be swell.
It reminds us of what we once were.
When it was 100 years old, the Saugus train station came out of retirement to take one more acting job, this time in the movie The Grifters.
By dictionary definition, a grifter is a person who makes money by swindling and cheating others.
Too young, you ought to be in school.
The movie The Grifters is inhabited by low-life people, and the Saugus train station plays its part perfectly.
5 of spades.
In the movie, it is supposed to be a bus station.
Where's the 5? In your other hand.
These scenes were filmed on the loading platform on the opposite side of the station from the agent's window.
Goodbye.
The place looks a little shabbier now than it did in The Pilgrim and Mammy. That's probably why I got the role in this movie.
If the Saugus train station has a co-star, it has to be Beale's Cut. This 115-foot deep slash in the mountain was dug out by General Edward F. Beale back in 1868. It was the first road of any kind leading from the San Fernando Valley into the Santa Clarita Valley, and it has been used countless times in motion pictures. The great director John Ford used it 3 times in his career.
The first time was in his 1917 silent movie Straight Shooting, starring another film local, Harry Carey. Harry rides into the cut on horseback, where he meets the bad guys and gets chased out. In 1924, John Ford used the cut extensively in his epic, The Iron Horse. It's the story of the building of the Transcontinental Railroad, and the plot has it that the builders can shave miles off the journey if they can take the rails through this natural cut in the mountain. In these scenes, the railroad surveyor, played by George O'Brien, is going to lower himself down a rope to the bottom of the cut to see if it is suitable for a railroad. Unfortunately for him, the guy he's with doesn't want him to succeed. Finally, in the 1939 classic Stagecoach, the Indians are about to attack, and the best place to do it is Beale's Cut. It's a quick 7-second shot of the stagecoach driving through the cut, with Indians on both sides shooting down upon it. Buster Keaton, the great comedian, used the cut twice in his movies. The first, 1920's The Paleface, has Keaton being chased by the Indians as he runs across a bridge that has been constructed across the gap at the top. In the movie Seven Chances, Keaton is being chased by a horde of women brides, all looking to marry Buster for his money. At one point, the chase takes them down one side of Beale's cut and up the other, while the women use the cut as a way to head him off.
What movies like these show us, in a visual, moving image, is the way we were. A small, Old West community surrounded by wide open spaces and peopled with pioneer spirit. Let's hope that future historians will discover more movies that show Newhall, Saugus, and the Santa Clarita Valley as it once was. I'm Philip Scorza, and this has been Points of Interest. Thanks for watching.